If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Kath Bequee, a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of three. Inside my online program, Fitness Mama, I just love helping support women to care for their bodies during pregnancy, prepare their bodies for birth, and support their after-birth recovery, helping them feel confident and strong inside out during this important stage of their lives. In this podcast, join me each week as we dive into all things pregnancy care, childbirth, and postnatal recovery, helping you through every step of the journey. It is absolutely possible to feel amazing and confident in our bodies during this motherhood journey, and I want that for you. Come and say hi to me on Instagram at fitnessmama, and let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. So today's episode is all about getting breastfeeding off to the best start possible and what to do in the first 48 hours after birth to really support the process of breastfeeding and give you the best chance of success. And I am joined today with Nicola, who is an international board certified lactation consultant, midwife and nurse with almost 15 years experience in a variety of health settings, including public and private. And I have the pleasure of working with Nicola at my clinic, Hatched House. Nicola was fantastic today. Today we discussed, as I said, those first 48 hours, the key things that we can do to really help give ourselves the best chance of success with our breastfeeding journey. We discuss everything from skin-to-skin contact, antenatal expressing, setting up the feeding space. We talk about what to include in our little caddy, our breastfeeding caddy. We talk about collection pumps, breast pumps, nipple pains, nipple creams, breast pads, and I really do think if you are pregnant, if you've not breastfed before, like this is the episode I wish I'd had at the start of my breastfeeding journey. So if you're pregnant, this is a perfect time to listen to this episode. You're going to love it. Even if you're up to your second pregnancy, third pregnancy, I'm sure you're going to come away with some little nuggets of gold. Enjoy, everyone. I'll put all the links in the show notes with how to connect with Nicola. And let's dive into this episode. So, Nicola, what can we do to get what can we do? What would you say is the number one key thing to help get breastfeeding off to a successful start?
Well, it's the golden answer to every breastfeeding issue, which is skin to skin. So, yeah, basically after the birth, regardless if you have a vaginal birth or a cesarean, trying to get your baby with you close as possible, skin to skin. So, skin to skin means ideally the baby just in a nappy, and you ideally with either a top off, no bra or anything like that. Obviously, in theatre, it's a little bit trickier in when you're having a cesarean to get great skin to skin, but you can definitely advocate for yourself to get that. And and you can improve it in recovery once you move out to recovery as well. And yeah, after a vaginal birth, it's pretty easy. Baby's born, placed up onto your chest. And the reason why skin to skin is so important is that we know that, breastfeeding is a very natural thing that, can, the baby has learnt skills inside them to know how to breastfeed. However, they need the right environment to get those things to kind of start happening. And placing the baby on you skin to skin is the first step. They start to smell you, smell the milk, look around for your breasts and things like that. But, and even regardless of if you've had, medications in your labor, a long labor, um, had to have a cesarean for a medical, for a reason. Skin to skin just puts it back to basic, gets baby with you, close to you. And every feed, I bel really in those first 24, 48 hours, ideally should be done skin to skin. So we get rid of the things getting in the way, like the bra, the clothes, the swaddle, getting your baby close to you as close as possible.
And this is why I found it challenging in those first few days when there's people in the
Mm,
hospital and you've got a
mm,
visitor and you say, "Oh, it's time to feed the baby," and they're just standing around. And you're like, "Well, I want to strip off." You're all just standing around watching me like this is awkward.
yes. So my advice with
Yes.
that would be having a think, like another thing for breastfeeding success is kind of thinking about boundaries. Like it sounds a bit rough, but like thinking about who you actually want to come visit you in those first, 48 hours, Would you feel comfortable with them seeing your breasts and your nipples? Because really that's potentially what could happen. So, having a think and like obviously with newborns, you cannot time when they're going to feed. They're feeding roughly 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour period, but they might feed, an hour later after the feed. So, yeah. Also, maybe it's a good conversation to have with your partner or support person, like them being an advocate for you to say, like, oh, would you mind? And, um, someone's she's about to feed, would you be able to come back in half an hour or whatever? Or things like that. It's obviously difficult and awkward, but it does make a huge difference. And as a midwife working on the ward, you know, getting those in those early days, getting that baby so close to you makes such a big difference. And yes, it's really awkward when you've got family members and friends and you want to show your beautiful baby off to everybody, but they're going to be here for a while. So there's time, and time is crucial in getting your breast milk supply going. So just
Mm.
saving that and trying to protect that space is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, great. And I've got two quick, I think quick questions, maybe not quick, about the skin to skin.
Hmm.
One is, what are your thoughts on what's it called, the baby
Yeah.
crawl, where you pop them on your tummy and let them crawl up?
Yeah, amazing. You can Google baby crawl and watch some amazing videos of these newborns just crawling and finding the breast. However, that is going to work the best when, you've gone into labor probably on your own, haven't had much intervention in your birth, not needed too many pain relieving drugs and things like that for it to work really well. Um, I've seen babies, do it all the time straight after they've been born. And I've seen babies do it 3 or 4 days later. Like it's not just for that first golden hour. I think we think, oh, it's just because when they're born, they get an adrenaline rush, just like the women do. They get an adrenaline rush and start. They're hungry because they've just been through a bit of a journey, and then they're ready and looking for a feed. So, yeah, I would just a breast call can happen, but ideally, as midwives too, I have to be patient and just kind of see, okay, will the baby do it on their own? So usually we're watching closely, seeing maybe encouraging the baby a little bit to kind of move down towards the nipple or closer to down the breast and closer to the nipple, or we're thinking, oh, it's getting close to an hour. This baby probably needs to start feeding because we need to start telling these breasts it's time to make some milk. And so
Mm.
if we leave it too long, it can cause issues. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
And is there actually any benefit for doing the crawl? Because surely it would require a lot of effort for the
Yeah,
baby,
yeah.
and would it potentially make them too tired or
No, I think, yeah,
yeah.
it depends. Like if there's a sweet spot because obviously you don't want to like them spending like an hour trying to crawl there and then they're like, "Phew, I'm done now, I'm not going to feed," and so therefore go to sleep and
Yeah.
conserve their energy. And then you've missed out on a really good opportunity to have a
Mm.
feed. But then you don't want to, get all hands on with them really soon after the birth, especially if they've got a sore head, or it's also about them learning it themselves. And, the breastfeeding support now we're really, as midwives and lactation consultants, encouraged to be more of a hands-off approach because, yeah, we
Yeah.
know that that helps women who are going home with these babies be able to put them to the breast.
Yeah.
But often with a newborn, you do need to guide them and shape your breast to help get as much breast tissue as you can into their mouth.
Did you know one of the best ways to support your postpartum recovery is through exercising carefully during pregnancy and preparing your body for birth? And this is something we cover inside Fitness Mama. This is what fitness is all about with its physio-created workouts. We help you support your changing body during pregnancy, whether or not that's with pelvic girdle pain-friendly workouts, whether or not that's with strength training for pregnancy or pregnancy yoga. We help you to prepare your body for birth and reduce your risk of third and fourth degree perineal tears and episiotomy. And we help to boost your postpartum recovery, whether or not you've had a vaginal or a cesarean birth. If this is something you want to do, then come and check out our free 7-day trial. You've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. And at the end of the day, it's all about helping us have a better motherhood experience to help us feel stronger inside out in every aspect of our life, physical, mental health, confidence. Anyway, I could keep on going, but come and check out the link in the show notes and join our free 7-day trial. See you soon. Yeah, interesting. I was wondering if it was just one of those, what's the word? Not hereditary, like one of those old reflexes
Yeah.
that's not really required anymore.
Yeah, no, it is.
In this day and
Yeah,
age where
yeah.
we,
No,
yeah,
it's still, and
yeah,
I think
okay,
it's lovely, like even, if your baby's a couple of weeks old, lying in the bath with your baby, often they'll bob around and
yeah,
jump on there.
yeah, fun. Okay. Okay, second question about skin to
Mm,
skin. What are your thoughts on your partner doing skin to skin in those early?
so good. I think
Yeah.
it's so beneficial for them in terms, as in the baby, to help calm their heart rate down, their temp, warm them up. Often, hospitals can be quite cool, and so getting the dad's skin to skin, really good bonding opportunity for them, and also then a rest for the woman as well. So, um, ideally, in a great world, it would be for the first 48 hours, it's literally skin to skin with mum, skin to skin with dad, or your support person, and just, the baby being held the whole time. But obviously, we've got to
Mm,
get some rest in there.
yeah.
But yeah, it's good.
It's funny. I've had 3
Mm,
babies, and not once was it ever. I don't know why I didn't advocate for this. I didn't even think
mm.
about it. It was quite a while ago now. Didn't once advocate, or no one ever suggested skin to skin contact for my partner, which yeah, doesn't matter, but would have perhaps been
Yeah,
nice.
one of the things that I like to do is like, so when you get up for that first shower after you've had the baby, instead of so the baby usually gets weighed, gets a nappy on, instead of getting it dressed, just placing it with the dad skin to skin then. So that's something for people to think
Hmm.
about. Or, after a feed, if they've had a feed skin to skin with mum and mum's ready for a good sleep, passing baby over to dad can be great. Or in recovery in theatre, if yeah, sometimes the mum, it's too much in theatre. Great, just ask, oh, can the dad have skin to skin, and tuck the
Yeah,
baby under the scrubs. Can be good,
yeah,
yeah.
great suggestions. Okay, so that was all the number one.
Yeah.
So starting strong in the first 40 hours, it was all about skin to skin. So amazing. What's the next best thing? Well, not next best, but what would you say is the next thing to helping, I guess, with starting that strong breastfeeding journey?
Um, I would say it would start even before you have the baby, which is becoming familiar with your breasts and learning how to do antenatal expressing. So that's hand expressing the colostrum before you have the baby, because often you need this um, colostrum if you can express some in the first 48 hours to kind of tie your baby over while they're waiting for the milk to come in. But often I'm finding more and more we need to be hand expressing after feeds in that first 24, 48 hours to kind of give your breasts a bit of a kickstart to say, hey, let's start making some milk. Because often these babies are sleepy, uninterested in feeding, and then, they'll go on for a couple of minutes and then fall asleep, and then families will think, oh, well, they're full. But really, they've only been on there for a couple of minutes and they haven't probably moved the milk. And we know the milk needs to be removed to be replaced. Otherwise, it won't. Um, like it's a supply demand thing. Once the placenta comes out, then it becomes a supply and demand. The baby needs to suckle at the breast to get the milk out, and then it'll make more and make more. So often, um, we're finding that women think their baby has latched well, or they think, oh, I've got this super settled baby. It never it's being really sleepy all day. The first 24 hours, they're quite sleepy. And then at 48 hours, unfortunately, the baby's lost, too much weight, and then we have to kickstart this whole plan. I think to try and avoid that from happening, expressing after some or most feeds in the first 24, 48 hours can really help make sure that the milk is moving, and also give yourself the baby that little bit extra so that we know that they're, definitely stimulating the breasts and getting the milk going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. And anyone listening today, I will link another episode I've done, which is on antenatal expressing. But on that note, Nicola, have you found that women who, and I'd love to know, is there any research on this? Probably not, but do you find women who do antenatal expressing have better chances of that latching and feeding in the first couple of days?
Yeah, again, the research is not really there. There was a huge study done called the Dane trial, and that was it did show that women breastfed for longer and the babies received less formula in the first week of life. But anecdotally, I will say, you know, the women that have it's what makes the difference is that women are more familiar with their breasts. So they
Mm-hmm.
almost know how to handle, like, because often, like we were talking about before, with when you need to kind of like shape the breast to help get the newborn on, they just they will do that better because they've been holding their
Mm,
breast more in that, and seeing no, and
yeah,
getting satisfied when they see a little drop or something like that. They're like, okay, that's the
yeah,
spot where the milk comes in. And also, yeah, I think that it helps. It doesn't help with supply.
yeah.
I think it is more just they're familiar. Yep.
Familiarity. And I can speak to that because, and I think I've mentioned it probably on the episode with Amber with antenatal expressing. I remember in that first hour or whenever it was, once I'd given birth, being so overwhelmed that the midwife just like was grabbing my boob and hand expressing it. I don't like it was just it was
Yeah.
overwhelming. Like I just felt like I was being manhandled,
Yeah.
and I'm sure she asked to, start expressing my boobs. I don't remember
Oh
it,
yeah.
but if I wish, if and there's no point in saying I wish I should have done. Like there's a lot of things I would have done
Yeah.
differently, but and there's no point in saying that, so I won't say it, but I will say it. That's one thing I would have done
Yeah.
differently is and
Yeah.
expressing.
It really,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think too, like showing if you've got a support person or a partner, like even getting them involved. Like often, at 36 weeks, I see women and I show them and I say, like, do this with your partner because in those first 2 days, you're
Mm,
recovering from birth. And often it'll be like, oh, the dad will be like, okay, let's hand express. Like if you suggest, oh, maybe you should hand express, then they're both doing it and it lightens the load a little bit as well. Yeah.
yeah, amazing. Okay, so we've got skin to skin contact. We have got hand express antenatal
Hmm.
expressing. What's next on the list,
I
Nicola?
reckon it would be, we kind of already touched on it, but setting up your feeding spaces, well. So if you're staying in hospital, that's obviously a little bit easier, but that kind of like maintaining boundaries in terms of visitors and things like that, I think that can be really beneficial. And, you
Yep.
know, another thing, it's kind of back to skin, but I'm going to keep going back to it. I'm not going to be able to help myself, but
Yeah.
it helps with, trying not to get the baby dressed. Just have the baby with you. Um, trying not to have periods of where the baby, some family members will be like, oh, I'll take the baby so you can get a bit of sleep. Really, ideally, the baby needs to be with you as much as possible because some of the feeding cues that they do are so subtle and you won't pick up on them unless they're in the same room with you or ideally on you. So, for example, often you go visit someone at hospital and they've got the baby beautifully wrapped up, all perfect in their bassinet with the little hat on. And the baby probably will like lick their lips or open their mouth a little bit and go, oh, mum's not here. I'll go back to sleep. I need to conserve my energy because there's not much breast milk. But if that baby was on the mother, um, and searching for the like that close, the mum would pick up on it, or the baby would be like, "Oh, mum's here," and start bobbing around and looking around for the breast. So that would be my other
Mm.
thing, just you know, avoiding the baby being passed around a lot because also too that's going to
Yeah.
help. They're going to pick up different perfumes and different smells and stuff like that. So it's ideally just there's always going to be time for that, and protecting that space is
Yeah.
really important and making it easy for you. So having, you know, like a little postpartum caddy or something like that, like a little kit next to you that's got a drink bottle in it with a straw so you can do it easily one-handed. That is a huge tip. The thirst is like no other. I don't know if you
Mm.
experienced it. It was, you
Mm.
feel very
Yeah.
parched. And some snacks in there for you. Um, a cloth, going to Target and Kmart buying like lots of those big face washer cloth things. Nipple cream is really important. Maybe some breast pads, like if you're leaking milk and stuff like that. So having that kind of with you around the house, or if you're in hospital, like something similar to kind of just have all your stuff with you so that you're not, you know, having to look
Yeah.
around for the things and not be able to respond to your baby really quickly when they are starting to show those signs of looking for a feed because we've got to capture them. If they kind of go too far,
Mm.
they're really distressed. Therefore, the mum gets distressed and it makes everything all a little bit
Yeah.
harder. But if you can kind of get the sweet spot, it makes it a lot easier.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting. You did just say something that I wanted to ask a question about, and now I've forgotten. The nipple cream I want to come back
Yes.
to. Oh, yeah, the breast pads you're talking
Mm.
about. So, what are your thoughts about, there's different brands
Yes.
available, like
Yeah.
Haka, that pick up the breast milk in the other
Hmm.
breast when you're feeding
Yeah.
one side. What are your thoughts on
That. So
those?
yeah, there's a lot of different products on the market. So there's the Haka, which or there's like ladybugs that are like little silicon things that you can place inside your breast, inside your bra to then collect the letdown, which is while the baby's suckling on the other breast. I have seen um, lots of times where they've worked well, lots of times when they haven't worked well. So if you've got, say, a bit of a low supply and you're having to you're needing to stimulate your breasts as much as possible to kind of help bring more milk in. Then a hucker on the other side whilst you're breastfeeding the other baby is okay. Otherwise, I think it's not really a good idea to use them. I've seen so many women have an oversupply with using a hucker because it basically is telling your breast. I usually what happens is the baby suckles on the other breast, and then a letdown will happen into your bra or into your breast pad or whatever. Whereas this, if it's got suction on it, it makes it a bit too strong, and then women are like, "Oh, great, I've got 80 mils," but then then the baby's probably going to go to the second side and feed again, get another 100 mils out themselves. And then all of a sudden, now we're making way too much milk, and the woman's really uncomfortable and, at risk of getting mastitis and things like that. So I
Mm,
think you have to be really careful. I also find that the
yeah.
haka gets in the way of really being able to get a nice, cozy latch with your baby. I feel like it's too,
Hmm.
and it's also another thing to fiddle with. You're already fiddling with two arms,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, the ladybirds, which is where they just kind of slot in, they're a bit safer, but in terms of the oversupply issue I was just talking about, but I would just be mindful that they're not compressing too much into the breast as well.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did always wonder because, when and you'll be able to explain this better than me, but the first little bit of milk that comes out, when I saw it, it was always very watery and
Yeah.
clear, and then you got the deeper when you've been breast. Oh, what am I saying? When you've been pumping for longer, it becomes the creamier, thicker
Yeah.
milk. So if you're then feeding your baby lots of the watery,
Yeah.
clear milk, does that mean they're perhaps filling up on milk that isn't as, I don't know,
Yeah. They,
enriched? Okay, I'll let you explain that better.
yeah. So I don't like to overcomplicate. There's like fore and hind milk. So the first bit of the milk is often, like you said, a bit more watery. It's got more lactose in it. So that's lactose is a sugar. It's digested really quickly. Um, and so um, and then the hind milk has got a higher fat content, so it will keep them technically fuller for longer and help. But they need both of the milks. Like, it's a good combination. And so if we start filling with things like a huck or a ladybird, we're messing with that. Like we're not letting the baby just take what they need. And potentially you're taking lots of fore milk away and it's getting replaced with fore milk. So therefore, they're just like there's going to be lots of lactose, and then they're not going to fill up on the good fatty stuff. So yeah, I just think the,
Mm,
we can
yeah,
overcomplicate it so much. You just
yeah.
better
Keep it
keep it
simple.
simple. Just let the baby do the work for you.
Yeah, and it's a lot cheaper too. You don't need to go and buy all this
Yeah,
extra
exactly.
stuff.
I would not add that to your list to buy.
Yeah, okay. Good to know. Right. Amazing. Is there anything more? So you've talked a little bit about the nipple
Yeah,
cream. Let's go into that a little
yeah.
bit because we know that that latch and that positioning in those first few days and the nipple pain, it's real. So talk to us about
Yeah,
that.
I think, breastfeeding again is sold as this, a la natural thing. It's so beautiful. And it is really beautiful when it works, and it is great. But
Mm,
you've most likely never had something suck on your nipples 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour period. Um, so it isn't going to be comfortable. It shouldn't be painful. It shouldn't feel like a pinch. Your nipple should look pretty much the same shape that it did before the baby latched on to after. It shouldn't be cracked or bleeding, or that's not normal. But when the baby is on, it feels like a pulling or a tugging sensation as opposed to a pinching sensation. But obviously, there's saliva there and things like that. And the hormones raging through your body make you super sensitive. So it is going, in between feeds, it's going to feel sensitive. It shouldn't feel, like I said, they shouldn't get damaged, but they're going to be sore for a good week. Regardless, even if you've got a great latch, they're still sensitive. Um, so yeah, avoiding nipple damage is probably, ideal, but it's a learnt skill for you. You've never the mum's never done it before if it's their first baby, and even if it's subsequent babies, like it's a different baby, and your breasts have changed and
mm,
things like that. So um,
mm,
being patient and learning through that. If it feels uncomfortable, so say you think the baby's on and you're like, okay, this is pinching, this hurts, trying to feed a little bit more breast tissue into the mouth before or straight away taking them off. Because I feel like women are taking babies on and off all the time because it hurts. And that is actually creating more damage because those first initial
mm,
sucks when the baby gets on, that hurts a little bit because the nipple literally has to get to the back of the baby's throat. So if you can kind of, I like to say to women like 5 big breaths while they're first going on. If it still hurts after 30 seconds, try a few little adjustments. If that's not helping, okay, let's take them off and start again. But
Yeah.
really it's once the first little bit is the painful bit, and then it should start to feel more like a drawing suck. And you can watch the baby. You'll start to see bigger jaw movements, hopefully a swallow. I think, you go to, all the midwives in the hospital will tell you 10 billion different ways of what to look for a latch. The lips should be doing this, blah, 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 blah. Don't, you just have to really look at your baby for art and how you're feeling. If you're comfortable, I say that you're not going to be sitting there just thinking, oh, this is easy. But if it feels more like a pulling sensation, and your baby's doing a good jaw movement, and they're occasionally swallowing. So in the first 24 hours, it will be more like suck, 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 swallow. So getting the midwife to point out what a swallow looks like. And then once your milk's in, you can really tell it and you can hear it. It's like suck, swallow, suck, swallow. So if that's
Yeah.
comfortable, so if it's comfortable and they're swallowing, don't worry about are their lips this way or that way or anything like that.
Yeah. So interesting. What you just said before, this also rung true to me. Like all the midwives in the hospital, amazing. Like couldn't fault anyone, but everyone does have slightly different tips and tricks and techniques and, things up their sleeve. And you do get quite, well, I got quite confused. Well, not confused, but what I would, and also, not that I'm going to wish I had done stuff differently, but if I was to go back in time, I would have got someone like yourself that I could then continue, just that one point of truth, just that one person that I trusted that I could then go back to for advice in those early
Yes.
weeks. Because you leave hospital, you're like, wowzers, and you're trying to fumble your way through
Yeah.
breastfeeding. And and even if you go to an outpatient service, like I went back as an
Mm.
outpatient, but again, you're getting a different midwife each time. And they're all fantastic. I'm not saying that, but and sadly, all this requires money, right?
Yes.
But like you've got the funds and you're able to get a one point of call, like coming to see you privately, or another lactation consultant privately, and had that consistency over those first 6 weeks. That's definitely something
Yeah.
I know would have helped my breastfeeding journey because I really struggled with my
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
bumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, if you're in hospital and you find a midwife that's kind of explaining it well, or it's like really helping, just every feed that shift that they're on, just press the buzzer and get them to come to you. Like, and if you find someone you don't,
Mm,
it's not working, then, you know, maybe not as ask for as much help from them. Or yeah, I think no, yeah,
mm,
knowing where to get support is really important.
yeah. And would you recommend for every single feed when someone is in hospital to try to get that support from a midwife? Like, is that even possible with all
Yes,
the
yeah,
different hospitals
exactly.
we've got in Australia
Yes,
and the different services and private and public?
it's
Is
not
that
it's
possible?
not like impossible. Obviously, the workload, it depends on the workload, and you might not need it, but I definitely think those first 24 hours, it's worth just, the first little bit that you're in hospital. And some of
Yeah.
these women that are birthing publicly are only in there for, 24 hours. So
Yeah.
yeah, just pressing the button and see if someone will come. I think that's a good way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be a quick, like, yeah, that looks good, or getting someone to sit in and watch the whole feed can be great as well, but obviously
Yeah.
not doable. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of protecting your nipples, again, you're going to see a million different gadgets and creams and potions to put on your nipples. I think Lancino, which is a purple cream that you can buy from the supermarket, it's lanolin based. Anything that's lanolin based, so there's Lancino, Marcolan, there's a few different brands, really so protective of your nipples and amazing healing properties in it. And it's safe for the baby to ingest. So I would recommend, even if you don't have any nipple damage, putting Lancino on your nipples for the first couple of days just to help with putting like a little protective layer on there. You just need a tiny little drop. It's really fatty, so it goes spreads quite well. do be careful. It is fatty, so it does stain your clothes and stuff, but there's vomit and poo and wee going everywhere from the
Yeah.
baby, so don't think you'll be worrying about that. Um, Another tip of my that I like to say is like even those breast pads, like for if you're leaking milk, if your nipple is so sensitive, like you can't even have the thought of rubbing a cream into your nipple, placing like a dollop of that Lancino cream on the breast pad and then putting it on can be good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think Lancino is good. Little
Mm,
drops of breast
great.
milk on it as well. There are like lots of different nipple balms and stuff like that. Some women, I just be careful with some of them. A lot of them you need to wipe off. And I just think why add complicate
Mm.
something? Um, there are these silverettes, which are like silver little discs that you
Yep.
can buy. Silver's meant to have healing properties. I, again, a lot of women anecdotally have told me that they love them, have helped heal their nipple damage. But you have to be super careful with them because you're leaking milk into them. And so if that kind of you leak milk into it and you've got a crack or damage there, you can risk infection. So just using them sparingly and not having them sitting in your bra like all day. And they're expensive
Okay.
as well. So maybe save your money.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, on the Lancino, does it have a taste like for bubs?
Not well, not really. It's kind of like a yeah. I don't see like a
Okay.
lot of women will say, "Oh, my baby doesn't like it," but I think just squirt some breast milk and they'll on it as well, and they'll be happy. Yeah.
Okay. And next question, unrelated to breastfeeding, but do you use Lancino on your lips?
Yes, it's the best lip balm ever. I st-
I'll have to get some. I've heard that before, and
yeah,
I just, yeah.
it's on my bedside table every night. I do it.
I remember as a teenager, I was good friends with a midwife's daughter,
Yes,
and she always brought her Lancino to school, and we used to. Oh, it was just so funny. She's there with her breastfeeding cream as a 13-year-old, and she used to,
that's
you know,
yeah,
love it.
yeah,
It was great.
yeah. It's good.
Okay, moving along. I think you have now officially covered everything that was on my list of questions to ask you about breastfeeding in those 48 hours. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to talk about?
I think pretty good. I think, like we kind of touched on, just knowing where to get support. So, doing that bit of research if you can before you have the baby. So, having a look at what hospital, like where you're birthing your baby, if you're birthing your baby at a hospital, um, do they have a lactation consultant that comes around on the ward to the ward? Do they have an outpatient clinic? Or, like we talked about, linking in with a private LC, lactation consultant. There, there's heaps of us around, and, sometimes doing a home visit can be really good because, then you're learning how to feed, um, getting that support without having to get out of your house.
Mm,
So, yeah, just knowing where to get the support because you don't want to be midnight, night three, bleeding nipples, crying baby, Google searching, and
absolutely.
even talking to friends that have had babies or used a lactation consultant, like write down the person's number, like know where to get support. A lot of my referrals are word of mouth which is
Yep.
great. And I just think that having that in your toolkit, and hopefully if you've done the research, you won't have to use it.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And on that note, are there any common early challenges that, like other issues, medical issues, baby issues that might cause challenges with breastfeeding? Like, for example, tongue tie
Yeah.
or, yeah.
So tongue tie is very controversial. I don't really want to get into it, but yeah,
Okay.
tongue ties are a thing. Let's just say your baby can't latch at the breast for whatever reason. You've tried. The midwives have been trying to help you. One of my recommendations would be to get the pediatrician or ideally the lactation consultant in the hospital to have a check, make sure that the baby doesn't have a posterior tongue tie, but um, even babies with tongue ties can breastfeed. But if you continue to get nipple damage, even though you've had support and trying everything, then it's worth getting that assessed.
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing I think I see is the sleepy babies in that first couple of days not really moving the milk, and then we get to 48, 72 hours and they've lost the weight, and then the mums are put on these crazy feeding plans to help bring their milk in more. And I just think we can be preventative with that, like what I was
Yep.
explaining before, you know, doing some hand expressing after feeds, introducing a pump in 24, 48 hours to kind of give yourself a little bit of extra stimulation to get that milk moving, help your baby, especially if they've, um, you know, if they've had to go to the nursery, so special care nursery or NICU and have been separated from you, um, you need to be doing something with your breast every 2 to 3 hours to help get that milk moving. And so
Okay.
asking midwives to help with that as well. Yeah.
Okay, so you'd get a breast pump involved if your child is in special care nursery or NICU or unable to feed for whatever reason. Or did you say after 24, 48 hours if you're having issues with
like like the
supply?
supply.
Is
So yeah,
that,
so you never really know at 24, 48 hours if you're having issues with supply, because the supply, like they're literally taking like 1 or 2 meals at a feed. But
yeah.
say you're trying to breastfeed your baby, and they won't latch or whatever, we need to both do hand
Mm.
expressing to help move the milk, because it's so thick and sticky in that first 24, 48 hours that like a breast pump won't get it out. But a breast pump can be used for stimulation. That's now what the research is kind of showing us, that, yeah, once you know, at 24 hours, it is still good to use it. You can use a breast pump, but don't think you're going to be getting milk out. You're going to be stimulating, you're mimicking what the baby should be doing. So say your baby's in special care nursery or not latching, that kind of thing. It can really help with those hormones. And so getting
Yeah.
the midwives on the ward to show you how to use a breast pump and things like that can be really helpful.
Amazing. Okay, last question.
Yeah.
What's your one key message you'd like to give parents who are listening to this who are perhaps pregnant, haven't yet had their bubs, or they're in their first couple of days?
Ooh. Um, I would say, what would I say? Key message. Guess what it's going to be? Keep your baby skin to skin and close with you as much as possible, and trust your body and listen to your body. So, keeping the baby with you will really help your supply get in, and try not to overcomplicate things. Just, if you keep your baby with you, they'll show you the way.
Yep. Amazing. And then my one would be get the supports around you.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I should have done. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
amazing.
and also I
You
get
be,
asked all the time, oh, what can my partner really wants to be involved. That's why we want to give
yeah, yeah,
bottles and all of that kind of stuff. The best thing that your partner or support person can do is do everything else other than the feeding, because if your main job that first week is learning how to feed your baby, because once that week's kind of gone by, it gets harder and harder to build supply up. So if we can kind of just support the mum to lay in bed with their baby for a week, a lot of our problems will be solved.
yep. And that helps with pelvic floor recovery as well. So win-win.
Yes, yeah. And learn how to
Just had to put that in there.
yeah, and learn how to breastfeed your baby on your side lying.
Oh, yes, that is a winner for pelvic floor recovery. I didn't master that till my third baby, third child, but by then my pelvic floor really did need that
Yes,
rest. So I was
yes.
really happy I persevered with that sideline breastfeed.
Yes. Yeah, good.
I think my boobs were just too small. They just wouldn't,
Yes.
I don't know,
Yeah,
found it hard.
yeah. Sometimes if they're bit too big, well, there's no such thing as too big, but if you need it kind of like to be able to get the nipple around, and then you can do it. It's easy.
The right amount of breast tissue for positioning.
Yes.
Thank you, Nicola. On that note, we will finish it up there. I'll put all the links in the show notes for how to find you.
Great.
And where is the best place for someone to find you? Is it Instagram?
Yeah, I've got Instagram. Yeah, on my Instagram, nurtured by Nicola, and then yeah, I'm at Hatch House, once a week there. Um, there's also a website called lacans.org.au, which is basically a directory of lactation consultants. If you want to find a lactation consultant to near you.
Great. All those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much, Nicola. Thanks for listening to the Fitness Mama podcast, brought to you by the Fitness Mama freebies found at www.fitnessmama.com/free. So please take a few seconds to leave a review, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and be sure to take a screenshot of this podcast, upload it to your social media, and tag me at Fitness Mama so I can give you a shout out too. Until next time, remember, an active pregnancy, confident childbirth, and strong postnatal recovery is something that you deserve. Remember our disclaimer, materials and contents in this podcast are intended as general information only and shouldn't substitute any medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. I'll see you soon.